Hello, welcome to the Village Family Services. I'm Angèle. Today we are speaking with another amazing mother and advocate, Rose-Anne Partridge. She's all the way from Bracebridge, Ontario. Hello, Rose-Anne.
Hello.
How are you?
Very good. Thank you, Angèle.
Thank you for being here today. So Rose-Anne has a son that was diagnosed with a rare condition called chromosome 8p inverted duplication. Uh,
Correct.
so we do have some questions that we're going to go through. First question I have is, how old is your son and what grade is he in?
So he is currently 21. He'll be turning 22 this year. Oh my gosh. And he actually just graduated his extended high school last May. We actually, due to all the COVID, we ended up just saying, it won't be going back to school. We know it. Let's just graduate him. So he graduated in May of last year and has been home with us since then.
That's great. That's great. What kind of school was he attending?
He was in the regular high school here in Bracebridge. We've been moving around a lot, but he's always been integrated into the school system wherever we go. However, he had his own, it was, I guess, like, I don't know their actual name of it because each school had something slightly
Yeah.
different, but it was a life skills style of classroom. And it was actually really great, really great.
Yeah, good, because that makes a difference, right?
Yes, yes. And I really do feel, I'll just say that we have been blessed in every situation for school that we have been in for the most part. So, because it can be such a challenge,
Yes.
as many of you probably know.
Yep. Oh, definitely. Were there any characteristics that stood out to you when he was younger?
Well, first of all, when he was born, we didn't know that he was born with his disability, but he was born with it.
Mhm.
Except that he did, it was a very normal pregnancy. It was, a normal delivery. However, when he was born, he didn't latch for nursing. He had no rooting reflex, and he had an underdeveloped chin. So the first things that kind of, the first challenges was actually just teaching him how to nurse, and was brilliant at learning that. And I was so pleased, even though, and I have to, the two nurse angels that were there,
Mm.
they were wonderful because this was my second child, and the first time around with breastfeeding did not go well. And so I was really, really anxious about it in general, and then to have that kind of a start again, but they were wonderful, and the support along the way. So he actually did quite well considering all of that. But then later on, he didn't meet all his milestones. So those were the things that we started to notice as far as characteristics go. Now, physically, he has actual facial characteristics that match his condition, a lot of different symptoms that match, but it was a slow journey to discover, in my opinion, a fairly slow journey, because it took about 2.5 years
I bet. I
before.
bet. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a rare condition, right? Like
it's
it.
very rare. And so we knew there were, milestones not being met, and he had one diagnosis earlier, which is kind of a tag-along diagnosis. I don't consider it the number one diagnosis, but it was the first one we got, which is Duane Syndrome. But it had more to do with his eyes. So he had double strabismus, so he had cross-eyed, and he had to go surgery for that at a very young age.
Oh,
Um, and it's the condition. And then we realized there were other things that weren't falling into place either. So we ended up getting genetics testing, and that's what revealed the actual chromosomal spot which narrowed it down. And at the time, it was very rare, but amazingly, not as rare as when he was
Yeah.
born. Nowadays, I'm finding more and more people with the
Really?
children who have that diagnosis. Yes, yeah,
And can I
it's
ask where you went to do the testing?
we were actually at the time, I was living down in the GTA. So we were living in Pickering. So we went to North York Hospital for the genetics testing at the time. And then we did get referred eventually to for a lot of the various symptoms that are associated with that. But it was the interesting part of it was we were at Sick Kids more for them to learn about the condition than
Really?
for us to learn about the condition. It was,
Yeah.
they were studying him to learn what happens, because there was really only a few cases at the time that they were aware of. In Ontario, I knew of one other child who was a little bit older than him. And I knew of another child who was born much later than him in New Zealand, because they found me
Really?
through the internet, because I would post about it going, well, this is
Yes.
what we've got. I don't know what it is. And they ended up
Yes.
finding me. So like I knew of two cases at the time. Now there's hundreds that slightly, the hard part of this is when you're talking a chromosomal thing, like each little variant, where the actual split on the chromosome is, it all determines. So everyone has a slightly different diagnosis, but we all kind of are now grouping together within at least the 8p, the chromosome 8p, but some are inverted, some are duplicated, some are inverted duplication, and then some are deletions. I mean,
So it's kind of
so
like autism spectrum, right? Everybody's different on the
yes,
spectrum.
it is a spectrum. It
Mm.
really is. And it can be so mild that you don't even know you have it. So as a parent, you could be, technically,
Yeah.
carrying that gene.
Yeah.
Um, and then to the other extreme where they have severe disabilities and physical and cognitive, etc. So it's such a huge range. And Johan himself, he falls, I feel, kind of mid-range. So it's not the most severe, because some of the cases that I did find, it was definitely worse. And Sick Kids would keep me in the loop. And then they discovered this in this individual, and so they would take a look at different potential issues, which is when we discovered his heart condition. And we didn't know to look at his heart until someone else had a heart condition. So that
So Sick
was,
Kids was really good at communicating in regards
to
to
begin
that.
with, initially, yes. We were part of, the genetics department there. We would be visiting, and we would visit only about once a year to just kind of catch up what's else they found. It didn't really ever provide, as I mentioned, us any real concrete action steps to be doing,
Yeah.
but kind of markers that we could look into as far as what might we see down the road to begin with. And then unfortunately he fell through the cracks, and we were left on our own. I don't know really, but we just didn't keep getting those appointments rebooked, and it was one of those things. And then
How long
moved.
was that for that you were on your own?
Oh, I guess the longest thing that we did down at Sick Kids Hospital was the dental checkups, because seriously, only place we could go to do that. And I mentioned that because right now I'm having a dental emergency with him. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And that he was only, I'm trying to, time is one of those funny things. I'd say maybe until he was about 11, 12 or so. Genetics department fell off much sooner than that. And because for his heart, thanks to my own research and things that I was doing due to my own, studying of what I could do to help him, at least that's what I feel, his heart condition didn't disintegrate as they were expecting it to. It just kept improving. So they kept doing, oh, we don't need to see you for another 5 years. Oh, we don't need to see you. And those things fall off, 5 years. When am I going to remember that?
Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't remind me.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know when I was supposed to go there next. And then in my opinion, his heart condition was not of most importance. And that's what ends up happening. You focus on what is currently right there in your face.
At the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And for him, it ended up surprisingly being severe scoliosis, which that was not on the radar, barely on the radar when he was younger. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. What are some of his interests?
He is, he's a funny guy. He loves humor. He loves to laugh. So he loves books. He loves watching movies, funny cartoon movies, anything with slapstick, because he loves seeing other people get hurt. I don't know.
Yeah. My little us, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bump into the wall. It's the greatest thing, it's, but he does love, ball sports and things like that, especially when he was younger. Now that he's getting older, you have to really encourage him to do these things, but he will still, participate in certain activities. Like basketball used to be one of his favorite things,
Really?
Not to shooting so much, but dribbling. He loved to dribble the basketball, and I have great videos of him doing it. And now he can still do it, but he's kind of like, yeah, okay, I'm done. So really, animals, but he has a lot of allergies, so it's like, okay, you got to kind of navigate that. But he loves horses. He used to do horse therapy and take care of the horse, and then it is wonderful. I love that, and he loved it. His room is still all decorated in horses, so I mean he's got a passion for it, but it's hard to find the right, each time you move that's one of the challenges with moving, is finding all those supports again. But in all honesty, when I was doing it, it was like an hour and a half drive to do it anyway. So it was like nothing was ever local.
So, what about now being in Bracebridge? Have you found all the supports that you need?
No. But one of the reasons I had the option of not enrolling him into high school, because he would have, if he regular integrated or regular student, he would have graduated already at that point. But because he gets the extended, he had the option of staying in there. And it was a debate for me to just let him graduate from his last high school, which he loved. He had a great classroom there. They would have thrown him a great party. They did throw him a wonderful farewell party even. But they would have done a big hoopla for his graduation for sure. But moving to a new area, I thought being registered into the high school again might help finding those supports that you need, which was the initial plan. And then unfortunately, it's just all the timing of things. There are supports in the neighborhood, but everything's closed.
Exactly.
So we're left on our own now that he's graduated.
Not for too long.
But you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. And then there's the waiting list now. Now. And adult programs. This is one of the things that I'm quite passionate about talking to parents who have younger children, is to inform them that you really do need to, like, I know the situation of what's currently in front of me. I'm just going to focus on that because that's so stressful and needs all my attention. But you do need to have some sort of a plan for the longer term situations, and because it does get more complicated. You got to get on waiting lists. You got to do this. You got to know where to go and who to ask. especially for like in my situation where I've moved so many times, people don't know him. So he's not in their system per se, even though he is. They're not top of mind. So it's one of those things where you have to be very vocal. You have to keep talking to as many people as you can and remind them that you're there, and and keep investigating. Now, again, we're in a unique situation here where we just don't know. I mean, it's going on a year soon, and so we're just doing the best we can with our own, family base here. But definitely something
And
that
I'm sure you're doing a great job at it.
well, he's happy. In all honesty, he'd be happy just being home. But I also know that when he's in programs and different things, they push him in different ways that he doesn't get pushed at home. He's different with me than he is with my husband, for example, who is his stepdad. His stepdad, can really he'll listen to him. He doesn't want to listen to mom.
Yep.
So
That's me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he knows I've got that soft heart where it's like, oh, okay. But he needs to be
very smart.
He's a master manipulator, and in a wonderful way, not in an evil way or anything, but he knows how to get what he wants.
Oh, yeah.
Especially from me. And so that's where, when he gets put into another situation, he's a little bit more inclined to listen and go beyond, his comfort zone.
I totally get it. My little Esme is doing fantastic at the school she's going to. They're amazing, the team there. She's learning so many things and being pushed in different areas that maybe I don't push as much. Not because I don't want to, it's just soft mom.
Soft mom. And it's a time management thing. Like we've got, we have other children. Yeah. We have other responsibilities. That's not, so it's always that, pull to all these other things. And, what I said, there's so many things I'd love to just dedicate my time to do with Johan that I know, he'd do so well with this if I just had the time, and so to have other resources that allow for that time to be given to him that I can't always dedicate, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's great. So did he have difficulty communicating at a young age?
Yes. So being nonverbal, it was actually funny. When he was a baby, he babbled like nonstop. And I always remember there's this time I went to a bank and I had him there in his little baby carrier, and I'm waiting to see, for whatever banking reason I was there. And an older lady was listening to him, and she comes over, oh, he is going to be quite the talker. He is just nonstop. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds like it, right? Because he would be nonstop, babble, babble, babble. But he never talked. So I always remember that moment because it's just so ironic in a sense. But he is very verbal when he wants to be. Some people, once he gets comfortable with you, he opens up. If he doesn't know you, he's just silent, and he observes and he studies and he listens, and and he gets upset at me for telling all his secrets when I go into every school meeting, and it's like, stop telling them that, Mom. But early on, he was it was nonverbal. He did a lot of gesturing was our main go-to. He would point to things that he would want. He would he would express his emotions visually, so you would know if he was happy with something or not. Things that he used to do, and I'm trying to remember because now it just went out of my head, but that's the mom syndrome. When he would clapping was his yes, yes, right? So it was happy. We had to really interpret his way of expressing himself. And this was the other story I was going to say. I came back. So in school, they really didn't know how much he understood even. And there was a time that they would ask him to, let's do some coloring, and they'd get the crayons out and they'd say, Johan, color the sky blue. And he would grab a red crayon and color it red. And they're like, oh, he doesn't know his colors, whatever. And then the his assistant would wanted to color something, and she said, well, Johan, can you pass me the yellow crayon? I really want to color this yellow. And all of a sudden gave it to her, and she was like, oh, that was
He
a good
knows.
fluke. And then she goes, well, let me test this. She goes, oh, well, Johan, I can't reach that black crayon. Can you pass me that? And he would pass the black. She's going, you know all your colors. What are you doing? But he didn't want to color the sky blue. He didn't want to, don't tell me what to color them, but I'm happy to help you. Yes. You need help? I can pass you what you need. Sure. Yeah. So he understood so much more than they realized. And that was when they started to ask things differently, and listen differently and interpret what he was doing with a different viewpoint. So I always thought that was a wonderful aha moment. And it's such a teachable moment because, we expect them to just comply with what we are asking them. And they're people, they're individuals, they're unique. Let them do what they want. Let them tell us what they want. Exactly. In their own way. Yep. They can't always speak, but communication is more than words.
It's key. It's key.
It is so important. And I mean, that was something I had to learn over the years myself because of that very same thing. It's like, I want you to do this, but that doesn't necessarily mean he does. And to respect that, even though he has special needs, he has his own desires and wants, and there's some things he's going to have to do because he needs to do them. He doesn't want to brush his teeth, but that's not optional. So
yeah, I totally get it. What about his communication skills now?
So he actually, over the years, we started experimenting with different supplements and things. I mean, we tried everything under the sun. And there was one particular supplement that he was on that really started to improve his cognitive ability. And the school was mentioning he was much, responding to questions in a much more proactive way, like when he was integrated within a classroom, that a regular classroom at the time, and they would talk about the story of the day, and ask a question, and the kids are supposed to put up their hand if they thought this, or etc. And he started responding, and he never did that before. And then it was a particular supplement I had him on, and then they came up with kind of like an upgraded version of that supplement, and I tried him with that, and all of a sudden I asked him one day, Johan, do you want a snack? And he's nodding yes. And I go to turn around to go find something, and he said banana. And I'm floored.
Oh. Yeah.
I am floored. Never in his life. He was like, I think he was 10 years old at the time, 9 or 10. And so for 10 years, I have not heard words come out of this mouth. And all of a sudden, not only a word, but appropriately placed and said and told to me. Now that's random. It doesn't happen all the time, but there are more and more words, even as I was saying, he has a very close relationship with his stepfather, and he loves saying his name, John. Oh, yeah. And it may not be 100% clear to everybody else, but we know he's saying John, and he says other key words quite well for us because we now know what he is saying. Yeah. And that has improved from 10 years old to now 21. That's 11 years. It's still he's not expressing himself in sentences, but he still does very long, rambly, babble sentences, what we call his own, we have a nickname, we say it's his light language,
Mhm.
and it's his own form of language, which he has. But he still, he's amazingly good at communicating what he wants, at any rate. That he has figured out over the years, 21 years of perfection.
Yeah,
He can drag me somewhere. He can, grab a book and put it in my hands. He knows what he wants, and he can communicate that.
that's great. That's great. How old was he when he was diagnosed?
So we didn't have the full diagnosis until he was 2.5 years old. So as I mentioned, he had the first diagnosis of Duane Syndrome, which came probably when he was about a year old. I can't quite remember the exact dates, but it was prior to that. He wasn't walking and all this. So I always remember it kind of corresponded with, he started walking when he was about 2.5, his first steps. So it all kind of corresponded with that. It was like all this stuff came together at the same time.
Okay. Um, so are you satisfied with the school's program and services that he attended?
Overall, yes. I think one of the biggest challenges we had, and I'll share this because I know there's families at different stages of their child's journey through school. When he first was in the school system, they actually recommended that he go into a daycare, even though he didn't need to. I was at home because I needed to take care of him anyway, but they really highly recommended, it was Grandview Children's Center that highly recommended that he go into a daycare program to have the role modeling of other children for things like walking, because he had just started walking and things like that. So, behavior, communication. So he had been in daycare from about the age of 3. They, did a great job. There was lots of support there and understanding, and he was integrated in, and he enjoyed it very much. His sister was in there with him. She hated it. But she was happy to be there with him at least, but yeah, she hated it. And then when he moved into the school system, the whole finding the educational assistance situation, that was the biggest challenge. We had great educational assistants. They loved him. He loved them. And then suddenly the school board say, no, we're moving them. Here's someone new.
Mhm.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? And that was my biggest question and battle constantly with the school board is
Mhm.
why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why are you shifting and shuffling? They love each other. They're doing well. They're growing and, supporting each other. It's like another member of the family, and you're
Yeah.
just going to move them, not because they want to. And it was numbers. It's like, and so I was a huge, loud
Mhm.
advocate for stopping that. They knew me.
Yeah.
I had lots of very interesting conversations. I won't get into exact details, but they knew me. I would give them because Johan had everything. He had such high needs from, toileting
Mhm.
to, like it was a full spectrum of support he needed. So to
Yes.
completely uproot that each time, like there's a certain amount of trust you have to develop with a person who is taking care of your child to that extent as well.
Yeah.
So it's not that I didn't trust the next EA, it's just why do it? And I have to say the one I'm still in contact with, it was his second EA that he ever had. She was wonderful, and she was the one I was battling for constantly to stay with him. And we still, he's 21. We're on Facebook together. We know, and
Mhm.
she gets to see him all
Yeah.
this time because there is such a bond that is formed.
There
And she
is.
did get
There
to stay
is.
with him because of my, you know, advocacy that I was doing on his behalf. They ended up stopping the switches that they were planning
Good for
for him.
you. Good for you.
The early battles and challenges that I had then, as I mentioned, we've moved, or I have moved a lot with Johan. And, so going from school board to school board was a challenge because each school board does things differently. And I went from a school board that integrated into the classroom into a school board that did not do that. Like it just wasn't even an option. So I was like, but why? You know, like, no, we don't do it. Separate classroom, whatever. Okay, so he was in this separate classroom for a while. And then that was just really temporary. And that's why, crazy life that I've had to move a lot. And I moved again. And in the next school board, they had to base it on whatever the previous school board's decision was. So even though he was integrated over here, he didn't have a choice of integration. This school board had to go by this decision. And it's like, well, that doesn't make sense. But I lost that advocacy battle. In the end, that was in grade, I guess he was grade 7. And it ended up being better that I ended up being won over. I didn't keep fighting it because they won me over with the classroom, and the teacher was fabulous. And the direct attention that they were able to give him in that classroom versus being integrated at that age ended up making a lot of sense. So I ended up not worrying so much about him not being included with everybody else because of the care that they did give him there. And then he followed that pattern for the rest of his school time. He was in the life skills classes. And overall, I think once it got to the higher education, it really just did make sense. Like he wasn't going to be doing the same classes as all of the others. What he needed was the life skills. Mm-hmm. And so I had to reevaluate my own thinking on that and why I was battling for that. And I think that was an important learning lesson, is, to know what is the key thing, what is the best thing, not just because.
What's the main thing for your child at that moment?
Yes. What is the most important thing for your child at that moment? And I thought it was being integrated, but it wasn't, and I had to learn that. So you have to know when you're wrong, right? Yeah. And say, actually, you guys are right. This is a better model in the end. Even though the previous school, he could have been integrated in, and I think it would have been better. But the one that I had to go into that situation. So overall, from that point on, for the most part, I had a few battles in one of the high schools in Brantford, just with some of the staff and things like that. I caught them, I did surprise visits all the time. They didn't like that. And
I think we all do as a parent. I think we all do.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important, especially when it was a new high school and again, new staff and everything. There were times that he was just coming home and it just didn't seem quite right. And, with his emotions and stuff, he couldn't express it, but why was he so upset? So, not that anything horrendous was happening there, just not a lot of stuff was happening there. Here's a movie. What? Yeah. No. That's not what he's going to high school for. I could put a movie on at home. Thank you. Yeah. So things like that is you have to be on the ball in that sense, and be willing to really communicate and let them know you're going to be there. You're not just dropping your kid off for babysitting, etc.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Again, where my little Esme is, the teacher communicates with me on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. She sends me videos. Wonderful. And like in the morning, let's say it was a bad day for my little Esme, I can communicate. I can send her a message real quick. Well, this, so be ready for this. Or
it's so vital to have that communication. Yeah. And that was actually why we moved from the Brantford High School to a Bradford High School. And it was like night and day. Mm-hmm. Like they were high school. I loved the teacher. She communicated. So, she had my cell phone. She didn't mind me, text messaging, and she would send me videos and
Yeah.
photos and, oh yeah, come on in. Can you be here today? Yeah. She would
Yeah.
love for me to be there.
Yeah.
And it was that openness and transparency and just, it just oozed out, and, you could feel it, and he loved it.
Yes.
So, it's communication is so vital, but you have to also, they communicated at the other high school, but it wasn't as honest as I felt it.
Or personal, kind of like
It
that
was very,
bond.
it was very, it
That
was just
bond.
in a,
Yeah.
yeah. And it was just this journal, this and that. Well, what did he
Yeah.
learn? What, like they
Yeah.
tried, but it wasn't quite enough. And there was a lot of, missing elements and stuff, and staff members that weren't happy being there. So like I said, if you're not happy doing this job, this is
Yes.
important.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't be taking it out on our children type of thing.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Exactly.
so those are the kind
Yeah,
of,
it makes a big
yeah.
difference when your child is going somewhere for 8 hours or whatever during the day, and that they're learning and they're in a safe environment and they're happy, right?
And they're happy, and really, like, it was the happiness that was the thing. Like, he loved being there, and I knew he did.
Yeah.
He has issues with transitions. So going from home where he's happy,
Yeah.
to going to school where he's happy, but that in between, it's like, no, I don't want to leave this happy spot.
Oh my goodness, I go through it every day with Esme.
Yes.
It's a
Yes.
battle for
So
her to
it's,
go to school, but she's
yes,
happy there.
yes. But that, and it was the same. There was a wonderful program when I was in Brantford, and I can't find anything like it anywhere else. And so, kudos on Brantford for developing this program. But it was a respite program for weekends, and he was 14 at the time, and it was the first time ever being away from mom or somebody, a family member. And I was nervous as heck, but it was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing that they had this overnight. Like, it was like a whole, like, Friday night to Sunday afternoon program. And, he was a little nervous to begin with, but I was nervous to begin with. But then he loved it there. They loved him. I mean, you were allowed 4 weekends. It was covered.
Okay.
They provided 4 weekends per year for your child to be there. And I was like, oh my God, this is like amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and so they loved him so much. He got more than 4 weekends. He usually got like at least 8 weekends.
Wow.
They would phone and say, can he come?
Oh yeah. Nice.
and because they would have a spot open, then they didn't like to have spots open, to keep the program running. They wanted to show that it's always needed. So they would always call easy, really, to take care of for the most part.
Yeah.
And he's such a happy guy. He smiles, and but the getting him there, he'd be like, getting in the car, and then you would start to pull up the driveway to this place, and he would be like, oh, this is where we're going. I'm like, see, I told you, this is what we're doing. I'm not just putting you in the car to go somewhere nasty, but it's like, he doesn't fully trust me, or like, he really just loved that movie he was watching before. I don't know. But yeah, it's always been that transition.
What was this respite program?
It was, I wish I could, I'll have to dig up the name for you, but it was in Brantford. The children's center there is Lansdowne Children's Center, but it wasn't the children's center that held it. So it was associated, though, with all of that. And they're the ones who introduced me to it. They said, oh, I think he'd be a great candidate. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of something like this before. So I was like, okay, I'm nervous. But then it was like, yeah, and they would call, yeah, sure, he'll come. I get a couple of days.
They did activities all weekend? Is that what it was?
They did activities. They did movie nights, and they had, air hockey games. They had all sorts of stuff there. And there would be maximum, I think it was 4 children per weekend. Okay. So it was a very small group. And there was a nurse there They had and assistants there to work for, depending on how many children would be there. I think it was a 1-to-2 ratio, which is still pretty good.
Mhm.
And yeah, they would do excursions. Like when it was Christmas time, they went, Santa came, and like they did
Nice.
all sorts of art. They did, yeah, they took them on trips even to different places,
Wow.
little local trips type of thing. They had a swimming pool in the building, so they got to go swimming, and all sorts of great stuff. So he loved it. He absolutely loved
Yeah.
it. They got their own individual rooms to sleep in, and you know lots of movies, lots of books, lots of toys. So
That's great.
it was a great place. And the name of it is escaping me right now, because it's just
That's okay.
such a wonderful location. It's in Bradford, and I hope it's still running. When we were down in that area, but I've never been able to find something like that anywhere
No,
else.
no, you don't hear much of places for like a whole weekend.
A whole weekend,
Yeah.
yes. And I have heard there was another, and I can't remember the location of it, but I have heard that there are places a whole week, and I've never been able to find that. But the myth is out there that it exists somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure you'll find it. So we're kind of close to the end of the
Yes.
time for the Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna skip to a few more questions because I don't
Okay.
want to miss this. This has been so amazing and interesting. I love all of this. Um, how did it change your life?
Wow, it completely redirected my life, as everyone can relate to, I'm sure. I was always a health nut in a sense,
Mhm.
but it really redirected. I mean, everything that I teach now, even to other people who uh, don't have special needs, it's all based on research that I did because of Johan. I mean, I started delving into the brain. I started delving into the gut health and emotional health for myself. There's so much that I needed to learn to take care of myself,
Yes.
first and foremost, which I wasn't doing enough of even prior to him being born.
Yeah.
And when he came, that went down even farther.
Mhm.
So learning all those kind of things. I mean, I went down to Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm we were chatting before this recording. I have a lot of different hats that I
Yeah.
wear,
Yeah.
and especially in my past. And I was a radio host, and so I fabulous people from all around the world. And one of them was in Scottsdale, Arizona, who had this amazing technology that I said, oh, I'm fascinated because of my son, and he became fascinated because of Johan, and he
Yeah.
wanted to meet him and to see, because it's all about the brain, and it basically maps out the brain. And so I got to do all these kinds of adventures even, and learning and delving into this kind of study that I would have never gone into if it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
So it has made me a stronger and wiser person. Definitely a more compassionate and, um, tolerant. I mean, there's so many different things, and he, his main is not just me, but everyone that he touches,
Yes.
um, is he is just so joyful despite everything. He radiates this joy, and to smile. I mean, right now he's going through some sort of pain, and we don't know what exactly, so we're trying to figure this out, and yet he's still smiling, he's still laughing, he's still doing his best
Yes.
despite everything. So that's really how he's changed my life in such a positive way.
Yeah. It opens your eyes to a different world. Eh?
Mm-hmm.
A beautiful
Yep.
world.
Yep,
So,
yep. And I mean, there's definitely the low moments, but
oh, of course.
we have them throughout life.
Yeah.
So the
Like we
wonderful
don't
thing
have a
is,
manual for this, we're people and we're learning as we go
mm-hmm,
to be the best
mm-hmm.
parent we can for our child's
Yep,
needs, right?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so last question. Is there anything else important to you and your family you would like to share?
Yes, yes. Well, one of the things about is I recently launched a project that has been dear to my heart for over 10 years now. It took me 10 years to finally get it to fruition, and it was publishing a book called For the Love of Our Children. I know you have your copy,
Yes.
and I know this is going to be backwards for everyone, but For the Love of Our Children. And it started out as the book that I was just writing about my journey, but I realized, just recently, really, that it's not something that was complete with just my voice. And so I needed to reach out to other parents who are on a similar journey. We're all on very unique journeys, but so many similar crossovers, um, and I reached out, and there's 15 families who came together, all with different perspectives on the special needs journey. And we put this book together. It's just really to reach out and help others to understand they aren't alone. As I mentioned, I didn't know anybody when I was first starting out with Johan, who was going through this. Even back then, autism, which it's now everybody knows what autism is. Back when Johan was born, no one talked about autism really. It was not common knowledge, and so we were very alone in so many things other than mentors and things like that. But this was one of the things that was in my mind to share, that we aren't alone on this journey, and there's so many
No.
different wonderful solutions. And it's not so much to sit there and say, oh, you got to try this, you got to try that, but just to understand that when you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck and there's nothing else I can do, there are so many different things you can do, and some will work, and some it's more of a book in my mind to just say, keep going, because you know what, you don't know what's around that corner, and it could be something really good.
Yeah.
So that's my passion, is sharing this with as many families who are on this journey, or just starting this journey, or even who have been on this journey for a long time as I have, who never got that support, especially at the beginning. I mean, I was reading the stories from the other families who graciously shared, and I was crying.
Hmm.
I was nodding my head going, "Yeah,
Hmm.
my God, yes, I
Yeah.
felt that." It gives that acknowledgement to what we went through, and what we feel, and there are some stories that are not that happy, and
Hmm.
others that are wonderfully happy, and others that are just starting and have so much more to go through. And so it's not like some solution book, but it's to sit there and say, the subtitle to it is True Stories of Hope and Healing. So it is really about, you know, giving that hope, keeping your faith, and keeping strong on this, and reaching out and finding people, like you, Angel. I mean, this is wonderful being able to,
Yes.
we were saying we're not even that far,
No, I
it's like,
know. It's
yet we
crazy.
don't know
Yeah.
where everyone is,
No.
and what they're going through, and this is just, giving that little bit of extra support. And we're going to be doing a lot of wonderful things. We're going to be doing an online, you know, conference type of thing in the spring to launch this. And we're looking at doing other workshops online, and just really trying to get everybody together, and supporting each other as much as we can, if for nothing else but to just say we're here.
I love it. I'm on board. I'm on board.
Thank you, Angel.
So I want to thank you, Rose-Anne,
Thank
for
you.
meeting with me today and for providing awareness um, amazing. I think you're amazing. I'm looking forward to reading your book as well.
Thank
So
you.
I'm sure we'll be talking again very soon.
Yes, thank you so much for allowing me to be here to share our story just that little bit more. And, you know, if anyone wants to, you know, reach out to me, the website for this is fortheloveofourchildren.com. And I'm also at reallifechanges.com. But For Love of Our Children is the best place to go right now for this.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. You
Thank you
enjoy the
so
rest
much.
of your day.
You too.
All right, bye.